Welcome to Agoracom CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap CEOs about their companies. And today, guys, this is a really special. We've never done this before. This is a really special episode. We're not talking about a press release or press releases. We're not talking about company results or fundamentals or anything like that. We're going to be hearing letters from actual patients of Delic. In their ketamine wellness centers, psychedelics treatments, and the impact it's had on their lives. Because we've already discussed how Delic is a really successful company. They're on a great growth path. They own the largest profitable chain of psychedelics clinics in America, and they're targeting hundreds of locations thanks to patient acceptance, legislation support, insurance support, but most importantly, results. Right? And we've talked about the numbers. So before we get into the letters with Kevin, let's go over the numbers. Response to ketamine treatment of depressive disorders, 80+% effective with bipolar and depression, 76% plus with major depressive disorders, 65% PTSD and anxiety, on and on. And this compares to 63% of Americans who have used traditional drugs to treat anxiety, depression, PTSD, but say they still have symptoms. So we know there's a major problem. Delic is one of the solutions, not naturally the whole space of psychedelics is one of the solutions, but we're going to hear some great patient stories. Kevin, welcome to Agoracom, my friend.
Hey, thanks, George. Nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Hey, great to have you on because, we talk to Matt sometimes. He just won't stop talking about how successful the company is.
It's kind of fun to chat about, especially
when they're affecting, I say that tongue in cheek,
people's lives. It's great. Yes.
Well, and that's the theme, right?
Right.
Him and I were talking last week, and I reiterated the two great things. It's very rare you get this as a small cap investment, but the two great things about being a shareholder of Delic. One, you're an investor in a growing company within a massively paradigm shifting growing industry. So as an investor, dollars and cents, that's a great setup to be in. Right. But then we have the double bang, the bigger part of it too, is that we're investing in a company that's changing lives. And over the next 10 years could quite literally change the face of America as people finally get these problems solved, because we know it plagues society. Right. So that's the business side now. So we said, hey, let's get everybody the feedback from real people. And he said, okay, we're gonna have Kevin on next week. Here you are. I'm gonna open the floor to you as to what you're gonna tell us here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. And my background is a registered nurse, and being a provider in the treatment room with patients that have been receiving ketamine infusions for mental health and chronic pain over the last 8 to 9 years has given me firsthand experience and time to sit with a patient for an hour and 45 minutes and hear their stories and hear their backstories and talk to them about what they've gone through in their mental health journey to try to get to, and what brought them to ketamine therapy. And, I could go on for hours talking about anecdotally the feedback that I've received from patients during infusions, and talk about the tears of when they finally feel that fog lift and they see the world through a different lens, and, or be able to really process that grief or something like that, or the PTSD, sitting in the room with veterans who see the trauma, but it doesn't own them like it owned them before. I had a nurse who worked for me in Washington who also worked for me in Arizona, and he said he got as much out of the patient treatments being a clinician chairside as the patient sometimes did, just hearing the struggles and then that evolution that those patients went through. But
it's got to be very rewarding to be there and to see that, because you're not talking about years of treatment and let's hope George over the next 18 months. You're talking about weeks, right? A couple of months sometimes.
Yeah, it can be
drastic change.
It can be as quick as after one treatment. It's rare, so I cautiously say that because I don't want to set patients up to say, well, I had one treatment and it didn't work. Normally, though, within the first few weeks, they'll notice changes that are significant, or sometimes it's family members that will notice the change. It might be a loved one or a child. One of the reasons my wife, who was one of the founders of KWC, became a partner in our company was she got the opportunities to sit in the lobby with a young child of a patient I was treating. And she had the opportunity to talk to her, and she said, "I'm so happy to have my mom back." And
That's unbelievable.
she looked at her and said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "She used to just live in her room, and now she comes to my soccer games. She comes to my school. She's my mom again." And she said couldn't stop herself from crying, but knew she had to get involved. So yeah, it's
fantastic. And I've heard those stories too. I got a client of mine who, for years was just we knew he was bipolar. We always look around at each other and say, "Is this guy bipolar?" He's a great guy, but we felt bad.
Right.
We're Kira. One day he loves you, the next day he wants to throw you out of the room,
Right.
And then a couple of years ago, all of a sudden these big changes came, lost all this weight. I said, "Hey, what's happened? What's up?" He goes, "I've been taking ketamine treatment downtown in the city somewhere. I won't be in the city, but in downtown of some city, and it's made all the difference." And it's
Wonderful.
So we've got those anecdotal ones.
Right.
Let's get to the real ones, because this is what I want to hear, and I think everyone wants to hear. You've got you've got about a couple letters for us, right?
Yeah, I got, a couple of letters, and we'll go from there. But I want to start with one out of one of our Texas locations in the state. It's this patient states, "I started ketamine treatments because of chronic pain, and I also severe depression, bipolar, anxiety, and insomnia. I went in just thinking I would try it because I had tried everything else and it couldn't hurt. After the first session, I noticed significant change in pain and anxiety. I noticed after about 4 sessions that my pain was staying away as long as I was paying attention to what I was doing. I've stopped taking all my anxiety medication and reduced my insomnia medicine. The thing that is important to go in with is a positive attitude and the willingness to make changes. The KWC Texas facility is amazing, and there's no other way that I can truly express how great of an experience it was, or it has been, from the second I filled out a request online, to the paperwork, to the authorization, and how each session goes. The staff is so helpful and knowledgeable and accommodating. Every single second of this experience has been eye-opening and empowering. I really can't recommend these treatments enough for so many reasons."
I mean, Kevin, you'll know better, but that sounds like that patient started off in a really tough, rough place. It was almost like this was the last resort from what the intro sounded like. How long did it take to go from desperation, last resort, to finishing their treatments? How many weeks are we talking about there?
Yeah. And I don't know this patient. So, I see these letters, and, I used to be able to have that knowledge, but it's a good question, because we are seeing, with more and more of acceptance of alternative psychedelic treatments like ketamine and hopefully MDMA, psilocybin therapy within the next year or two, that there's this growing knowledge base. And a lot of the patients that we talk to, when we started treating back in 2011, there was a very few clinics that was doing this. Officially, KWC opened up in 2015, but there was still maybe 5 or 6 clinics. Now there's hundreds, which is wonderful, because more people need this, and it's more people becoming aware and able
There's
to.
no shortage of patients, that's for sure.
No, exactly.
All right, let's go to number 2.
Sounds good. Okay. This is from one of our Nevada clinics. My journey with ketamine wellness centers began when my doctor recognized that I'd fallen into a serious depression after losing my husband of 30 years to multiple myeloma. Life after loss changes you. I reached out to ketamine wellness centers, and that's where my transformation journey of healing and wellness began. There's not enough words of praise and gratitude to express how I feel about Amber, Brianna, and Marcus at the clinic, other than to say, if it was not for them, I probably would not have gone through my treatment. The thought of using ketamine scared me. It takes a lot of guts to completely let go and trust the process. They have a way of helping you feel safe, supported and loved the whole time. I never felt judged, only loved and supported. I found the effects of ketamine therapy to be pleasant. The results were instant and it never left me feeling altered. After 6 treatments, I still feel my feelings, and I'm very much in control of my own thoughts. Ketamine has helped provide a much needed shift in my perspective. My widow brain fog has completely lifted and I see the world again with crisp clarity. I am grounded and connected to the present moment. My sad storm has evaporated and no longer follows me around. I can look at my life and not feel anxious or disturbed by the new reality. My life is just becoming as I see it, as a gift, thanks in part to my ketamine therapy and the practitioners at Ketamine Wellness Centers. My therapy is ongoing. I will continue with maintenance therapies as needed until I feel that I no longer need it. As of today, I finally feel well and on the mend. I know my grief is still with me and it will be with me for the rest of my life, but in a much happier place now, thanks to ketamine and ketamine wellness practitioners at the Ketamine Wellness Centers in Nevada.
Wow. So there's 2 things I picked out of that one. This one was a sudden depression because she lost her husband. This wasn't lifelong. So
Right.
that's something a lot of us are going to go through. We're going to lose somebody. So today I'm a pretty stable guy. I may lose somebody tomorrow and all of a sudden, I'm suffering from the same thing she does. And then
Right.
the second thing I picked up, and you're able to help her through that. And then the second thing I picked up is that she actually, I'm glad she said it, she was initially scared
Mhm.
of ketamine.
Right.
And now she obviously isn't. And is that something where you've seen a shift also, Kevin, where, people at first, maybe a couple of years ago, as ketamine was starting to make its way in, would be have a little trepidation, but now
Oh,
they're starting to, we've gone over that hump.
absolutely. We're not completely over the hump by any means. We still get a lot of social media responses and so forth asking, isn't this horse tranquilizer? Isn't this, special K? And the answer is yes. It's a very safe anesthetic, and that's why they use it on large mammals like horses and, different animals where airway control is difficult. And ketamine has a very good safety profile that it doesn't affect or compromise airway, impacts. That's why I used it in the burn unit, in the emergency room with children. Nothing more nerve-wracking as a clinician when you're dealing with an airway of a young child who's maybe has a burn injury. So you want to use a medication that will not suppress respiratory drive. So ketamine was always a very good option for those individuals. So, and the dosages that we're using for mental health is so low comparatively
Right.
as what we used to use as an anesthetic. But it's still, it's the responsibility of the clinic. Ketamine does cause dissociation. It can cause people to become unhinged, a little unnerved. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we have chair-side clinicians. We don't leave our patients unattended. So it's a little more expensive by us being present in the room with the patient. And sometimes the patients enjoy quiet solitude and internal reflection during the treatments. But if something gets a little kind of off, or they're feeling anxious, or they're feeling nauseated, or anything like that, we have a clinician in the room, chairside with them, who can manage that. And I think for this lady in this scenario, having that comfort of a trained medical professional chairside with her made the difference of her ability to kind of allow the treatment to have its effect. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
I love the fact that was a totally different story and totally different environment from the first one.
Right.
And you've got one more for us?
Got one more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Well,
love
I've
this.
got,
I love this. So,
I've got probably 50 more, 100 more, but I don't want to keep you on the phone all day. So, all right. This is one from one of our Arizona I believe, Arizona offices. So Ketamine Wellness Centers has changed my life. My entire quality of life has improved. Every single person in my life notices the difference in me as I do. I feel better and I'm living better. I can handle stress better and life is a little easier. This treatment is the equivalent of hitting a reset button on your brain and your body. It's worth every penny. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. I highly recommend this treatment if you're suffering from a wide variety of diagnoses and symptoms, from insomnia, anxiety, depression to pain, mobility, and other disorders. My appetite's improved, my digestive system's gotten better, stress has become easier to manage. Only listing a few things that they treat at the clinic, because the clinic treats so much more than I had mentioned, as does the ketamine in general. Check out the website for more information, which I didn't put that in.
Yeah, it sounds like an infomercial there, Kevin.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we know. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine that they put that in the letter. But was that
I know.
online? I get the feeling maybe that was posted online.
It was. Yeah.
That's probably that explains it.
Yeah.
Do you find and so that's the important part I want to get at letter number 3. And by the way, I hadn't heard any of the 3 letters before you read them off to me today, right?
Right.
So
right.
what I got out of letter number 3, which is something I really want to cover, which is what, and it's just anecdotally, I'm not asking for specific data, but
Sure.
I guess there must be a lot of patients like that patient. So as a result of dealing with George brings in a couple more friends, a couple family members, a couple business associates. So what kind of viral effect takes place? Because there's an example where I believe it was a she, says, hey, I loved it, changed my life, did all these things in, you got to do it. Here's the website, go. Because if she's doing that for the public, I've got to think she's telling everybody that in her social network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can tell you that, again, not specific details, but especially early on when budgets were very tight and so forth, word of mouth advertising was our best option. And we still see that,
Yeah, has to be.
Yeah, and we've, in the past, maybe received less than 5% physician referrals because, again, it was off-label.
Yeah,
there still wasn't market knowledge, awareness, enough data for psychiatrists, pain management doctors, general practitioners to recommend ketamine. Now with Spravato being FDA approved, but also more and more data and research coming out about ketamine's effectiveness and other novel compounds, coming on board, we're seeing a larger portion of psychiatrists and different mental health providers who are saying, if these aren't working, you may want to consider ketamine, and I know that there's X amount of clinics in this area, look into them and so forth. So we're seeing more of that. But yes, going back to, we're not the cheapest provider in most of our areas, but
I don't think this is something you really care about, getting to the lowest cost, cost provider.
I mean, and that's where you have to be aware that the majority of our patients are still cautious with psychedelic therapies. They may have had, some experience in college or whatever, but they're still very hesitant because of this stigma around it. So by having chairside clinicians and having a support system built in, and knowing that it's now being reimbursed through third-party payers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, the VA system and so forth, that they're recognizing it as a actual reimbursable therapy, it's making it a more mainstream option for patients who may consider doing ketamine therapy before going down traditional SSRIs.
Absolutely, because it seems like go that route first.
Right.
And if we can get this wrapped up in a couple of months,
right,
then why should I go through? I mean, you and I both know people who are on antidepressants and for years.
Right.
It's for the rest of their lives. And God forbid, you don't want, if you can avoid that's a fact.
Yeah. And if you don't have to take a pill every day, but you can go in, once you're kind of in a stabilization maintenance plan, you go in every 3 to 4 months to just kind of get that rebalancing. That's better to me. That's better than taking a pill.
Like, I think that's just going to be a separate conversation, but we all know that the pharma world, we don't want to beat up on it because they've done some really great things there.
Right.
But
Right.
there's no doubt there's also the business model there is a little bit of, well, if I can get George to take this pill every day for the rest of his life, I'm going to be able to extract, $38,000 out of this guy over the next 15 years or whatever the case is. And there's a business model there. You guys have a business model, but
Sure.
the great thing I love about psychedelics is if you haven't been able to help George in 2 or 3 or 4 months or something like that, then that's a fail. I don't want to say it's a failure. Those are my words, but it's a disappointment.
Right.
You want to get people patched up a lot quicker. You don't want George coming into KWC, for everyone at home, Ketamine Wellness Centers, if you don't know the company, the chain. You don't want me coming in every week for the rest of my life if you can avoid it, right?
And the great part too is as we continue to use data and evaluate patient outcomes and be able to extrapolate information, we're now at the point of a volume of patients that we can do not only some retrospective reviews, but some concurrent reviews of impacts of potential impacts of medications on ongoing ketamine therapy. We know that there's certain medications that we have to dose adjust with their prescribing clinician, of course, in collaboration with them to maximize the benefit of the ketamine. So we're using the tools and the data of these. We're treating over 1,000 treatments a month as a company. So we've got a lot of information about different patients, different backgrounds, and different medications that they may be taking. So is there some opportunities to look at medication interaction and interference in ketamine effectiveness over the long term and make those recommendations in collaboration with the psychiatric or whoever the prescribing provider is to optimize that patient's mental health?
Yeah, I'm sure as time goes on, you're going to be able to add data analytics to all of this.
Yes.
To pick up patterns and, okay, George has these 3 factors. Let's go into our database, but let's go this route, that route. Which can make you guys even stronger, which is amazing. So the last one is you don't have a letter per se. Now I do know because we spoke off camera.
Right.
You don't have a letter per se, but you want to talk about a postcard that you guys get every year, and you want to save this for last for a reason.
Yeah.
So
this is one of those goosebump inspiring things that keep any entrepreneur or business owner moving forward when things get a little rough. And so I wasn't the recipient of this postcard, but a patient up in our Minnesota clinic came to us. It was a gentleman who was very, very depressed, very, very suicidal. And we didn't know this till after his screening, but he had an actual date specified that he was going to plan to take his life if the treatment didn't work. And fortunately for us and for him and his family, the treatment worked tremendously well. This young man was living at home, was not working, was basically isolated, agoraphobic, staying at home. Went through a series of 6 stabilization infusions and did very well, and continues to get maintenance treatments ongoing. But every year, this gentleman sends the clinical staff a birthday card thanking them for allowing him his life back to continue to have birthdays where he knew he wasn't looking forward to any future birthdays before he started with us. And our clinical staff pulls that out every year. They wait to see it. They see him. He's now moved out from home. He's now got a job. He's productive and he's doing really, really well. Does
he ever come in every 3 or 4 months for a rebalance or things like that? Or is he so well treated that he's off and running?
No, he still comes in. He probably comes in every 3 or 4 months, like you said. And, there's different triggers. A lot of people I'm in Arizona, so we're going into the nice time of the year, whereas he's up in the northern states where it gets pretty cold. And for him, the incoming holidays and stuff can be a trigger for his depression to kind of kick in. So we know that we're going to see him usually by this time, around fall, because
I may join him because I'm up in Toronto, and
there we go.
The pool just got closed the other day.
Yes,
it's all shutting down. I'm starting to feel it, so tell him I might come in with him. He's not alone on that.
Yeah,
but that's a fantastic story, Kevin. What I got out of that was different from the other three was the guy had set a date.
Yeah,
he had set an expiration date on himself.
Yeah.
He said, "This is it. My life. This is so bad. If this doesn't work, I'm out. I'm done.
Right.
There's no other option. So that's how dire his situation was. And you guys were able to, knock on wood, you guys were able to pull him out of that. So,
right.
Kevin, thanks for sharing these. These were incredibly powerful. We always anecdotally kind of speak about these with Matt, but we've never had these specific. And you know what? I get the feeling maybe we'll do this every 3 or 4 months, where we read another 3 different stories. Because my hope is we're going to put each one of these out individually. This video is going to go out as an entire video, obviously, like we always do. But we're also going to break down each segment into its own, properly tag each one, with different. One is depression after death, one is suffering bipolar, one is suicidal, so that people pick it up on social media, not just investors, but people pick it up on social media and watch it. Because if what you and I just did can help one person, that's phenomenal. And even our investors, right? I mean, our investors are going to watch this, and you can bet our investors, some of them in there know either themselves or know people who are suffering from something similar and might say, let's get this done. And I'll end it with what I told Matt last week. I got a relative in Florida who was going through the traditional routes of doctors, pharma drugs, and I said, guys, get to a ketamine center, and let's get, and they started. I'll let everyone know how it went. They started, but thank God for you guys, man. And Kevin, don't tell Matt this, but I think you and I did better than we did with him. But don't say anything to him.
I got to get on a phone call with him in 15 minutes. I can't rub it in.
Maybe hint at it. Maybe say, I think George might have appreciated his time with me a little bit more. I can't be sure, but at least let's mess with him so that the next time he's on, you're living rent free in his head when you do an interview, and we maybe knock him out, because he is actually really great. He's the smoothest guy I know when he does this stuff. That's the because he believes it. It's smooth. He believes it. He understands the business, and that's why it's awesome being an investor in this company. Thanks, Kevin.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thanks for your time.
To everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform. To Kevin Nicholson, the CEO of Delic, trades in Canada under DELC. By the way, you got to love that name, Delic, Psychedelic, Delic, DELC. And for our friends in the US, DELCF. For those new to the story, but you've heard this interview and it's been impactful, and you want to know more about the company, get to the profile page on Agoracom. We've got it all neatly laid out to you there, the business case, the medical side, all of that. And then when you've got that foundational knowledge, head over to the Delic website, do your deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom Small Cap